Yeah, and that I would like to focus on that in particular because I do think that there are features of Career Ready 101 that are potentially very valuable for working across systems. We have used the Work Keys assessment itself in our region for probably more than 10 years. We were one of the early adopters of that testing system, and so we have people coming in for certain occupations like paraprofessionals where they're required to get that, or they can use the Work Keys certification as an alternative to another kind of certification and present that. We also have people, now and then, who are going to a job in North Carolina or Ohio where this is well recognized, and so they're getting the certification from us. So I'm saying that because I think as the whole system becomes more understood and known by employers in our state, it will become increasingly valuable. And part of that is the National Career Readiness Certificate, which you can issue through Work Keys. Right now we issue that, and we have given it to many of our workforce development participants in training programs. And a nice thing about it is it describes on the back exactly what competencies are being certified by the certificate, but it's not something that employers automatically know what it is. But if in Ohio or some other states, they actually do know. So I think as the Department of Labor in Massachusetts begins to educate employers about this whole system and what it measures and what these credentials represent, that certification could be valuable. And certain occupations, as I've said, do use certain tests in the Work Keys system already within our state. But I've used it primarily from an adult basic education perspective and more recently in a workforce development context. I wasn't actually using Career Ready 101 because Career Ready 101 didn't exist yet, so I was using another software program called WIN, which does some of what Career Ready 101 does, but Career Ready 101 is much more sophisticated. Also, Career Ready 101 is not dissimilar from something like Massachusetts Career Information System or other career exploration websites. So you have that entire career exploration component to Career Ready 101, but you also have the tutorial software to help students develop skills in relation to the Work Keys assessment. So there's a skill assessment and career exploration component. The thing that I find that has the most potential for me is the fact that those two things are together in the same program. And I'll tell you why. I was just presenting on this to a group of Pakistani higher education administrators who were visiting HCC for 6 weeks right now. And I was telling them exactly the same story. I tell this story every time I start to talk about this because it's how I got interested. It's what made me think about how can we use these tools. I was working as an ESOL teacher and program coordinator of a small program. I had a student from Laos. Yeah, from Laos. Sainali Sungfofakti was her name. And she was topping out of our ESOL program. This is back when we were using the REAP. She was SPL 7 on the REAP. We had done everything we could for her. She was on her way with our blessings. We were very happy for her. We thought, every doors were wide open to her. And her goal was to get a certified nursing assistant certificate. She went to 3 different CNA programs and was not admitted to any of them. And when I inquired why, it was because she had to take a reading comprehension test, and she had not passed that test in any of those 3 centers. Well, as I looked at that and thought about it, I noticed that we were measuring her writing with the REAP. We were not measuring her reading, and I had no idea what the reading requirements were to enter a CNA program. So there was a clear misalignment between what we were offering and what the training programs offered. But not only did I not know what she would need to be able to do in terms of reading to be eligible for a training program, I didn't know what a CNA did on the job. I mean, I kind of did because I actually worked as a CNA myself a long time ago. But I didn't know, like, what are the reading competencies that a CNA would need to know? Because I had done that work, but I was college educated. I didn't really have to think about, you know, the level of difficulty of reading that I was doing. It was easy for me. But for a second language learner, what would she need to be able to do on the job? I didn't know that. That's where the WorkKeys system, I think, which underlies the skills assessments in Career Ready 101, is really valuable to us and to our students. Because for all these occupations, thousands of them, they've done, they followed people around and actually looked at what do they do on the job every day. And they've developed these competencies based on what actual people do in actual jobs. And they connect them to these skill levels within the program. Now, for quite a while then, after that, I started to use the WIN software, and I started to use Massachusetts Career Information System for career exploration. And we were always toggling back and forth between these two programs. And I was trying to help students understand how the skills they were developing related to the occupations they said they were interested in. But it was very confusing, and I think nobody ever understood it except me. I was trying to explain it, but it wasn't like anybody really got it. Having them write together in the same program, the student can actually see, oh, I want to be a CNA, here's the reading level I need, here's the math level I need, here's where my skills are right now, here's the gap, and here's a tutorial software to help me build my skills to be able to do that. That's what I think is so promising for the student and for the advisor in a program, for the instructors as well. How does that relate to systems? Well, if the career centers have this available to them, as they do, and the community colleges, which in our region are the largest training vendors for workforce training, we've been using the WorkKeys assessment for our training programs for quite a long time. You know, now if an ABE program or a career center wants to send someone to those programs, they can say with confidence, yes, this person is reading at the correct level for the training program. This person has the right math level for the training program. We can send them. Or if not, we know what it is that they need to work on before we send them, so that we're not sending people for a very discouraging exercise. We've cheerleaded them and built their confidence and practiced interview skills, and then they got there and they were turned away because their skills weren't at the point they needed to be. No, we can figure all that out ahead of time, make better referrals, stronger referrals, and understand how the skills that we're teaching relate to the occupations that our students are selecting. Now, in terms of college, there's a lot of difference between how the WorkKeys system measures skills and how the Accuplacer measures skills. Frankly, that's very different from how the HiSET measures skills as far as that goes as well. But the simplest way, and I think the biggest difference is really in math. In reading, the difference might not be quite as dramatic. But in math, the way that things become more difficult, in all subject areas, the way that things become more difficult in the WorkKeys system is that there are more steps to the problem. It's a more complex question. In math, you're pretty much staying at the level of ratio, proportion, decimals, percentages, fractions. According to the occupational profiles in WorkKeys, 50% of available jobs in the United States, you only need that level of math, level 3. So that's not college level math, but it is, they say, 50% of jobs that you could do those jobs if you just have that level of math. And that's the math that many of us are teaching, whether it's at a HiSET program, a developmental math class, or an adult basic education class, or a transition to college class. That's the math that holds people up. So understanding a little bit about how that is organized and how it's very different from college level math and college level reading even. And then there's this whole other assessment for the National Career Readiness Certificate on locating information, which I would say is another area of math really, but it's like reading charts and graphs, interpreting data, which we know with the Common Core and EO and such that's becoming increasingly important in modern life. So there's a separate assessment for that, which is kind of unique, I think, within this system. But understanding how those do and don't align with with the college placement test, I think would be the point at which, college career centers, because I'm looking at my colleagues from HCC or from the Career Center, might be able to think about, okay, for which students might this be an interesting assessment to do? Let's say you have a student who's in college but needs a job, and this is a different kind of job than the one that they're going to college to eventually get, but where are their skills at right now? What are the occupations that are available to them right now based on this more workforce-oriented assessment? I think there might be a role there. I wouldn't necessarily expect that all community college students would be doing this assessment at any time in the future, but there might be some subset of students who have an immediate employment need, but also have that longer-term college goal. So I think those are the main things that I see, the main features of it, the opportunities to align training, adult education, career center referrals, and how the career exploration is being done, guided by whom. One of the challenges I think that career centers, one-stop career centers have, at least in our region, is that they have computer labs, yes, but they're in use all the time. They don't have any place for people to come and just work on Career Ready 101 with guidance, because they also don't have the staff. But for instance, at STCC, they're right across the street from the One-Stop Career Center, and STCC does have computer labs that could be made available. So there are opportunities to partner there, perhaps in new ways, to say, have a Career Center staff person at a college computer lab certain times a week, or have someone from Adult Basic Education at the Career Center certain times a week to help people learn how to use this tool. I think those kind of collaborations between and across systems could be really rich and helpful. I think that's it.
Thanks so much, Kermit. Questions for Kurt? Oh, yeah, please.
So you talked about guidance, and
Yeah.
these, and I apologize that I don't know very much at
Oh,
this
no,
point,
no.
that's why I'm here. But do they need a lot of guidance as they're going through these modules? So for instance, if they were at the Career Center with someone who didn't have training as an educator, are they better off with an instructor who can help answer questions as they're moving through the modules?
So I'll answer that, and then if anybody wants to jump in. But I think, first of all, people need guidance in understanding how to use the program and why it will be beneficial to them to
Right.
do so. I think there's some kind of learners, and this also, I spoke about ESOL before, this whole Career Ready 101 is not designed for non-native speakers of English. So ESOL students might have a need to have some support just in understanding some of the language. You can get a preposition wrong in a math question, and then you get completely the wrong answer, not because you didn't know the math,
Right.
but because you misunderstood the English. So I think there might be a need for guidance with ESOL students in particular around that. But I think once students have gone in and done a few modules, and they know how to use it, they can probably continue on their own. Some are going to be more receptive to that mode of learning. Others are probably going to want to have somebody to talk to about what it is I just read and kind of check in to make sure that I understood it. But I think the bigger picture around that is not so much about the content, because Career Ready 101 is supposed to be the content delivery system, but it's more about the context. Why is this important to me? Keep asking the questions about, what are you discovering about yourself through the career exploration process? How are your career goals changing? How does that relate to your skill development? I think providing that context for students is probably where the advising becomes most important.
Yeah, and I think I would agree, there's it's a very deep tool, so there are 2 or 3 ways to break it into kind of a natural occurrence. Career awareness opportunities, there's a certain amount of explanation that an individual needs to be able to navigate those components. The ability to start to either self-diagnose or have support in how to navigate the learning modules is a little different. The level of support that may be required in the learning modules as far as content can even be different from that because there are many different modules. So I think it's there's kind of 2 or 3 steps that you have to consider. I think on the career side, and I'm looking to my colleague George, Stephanie has started piloting in curriculum on teaching people the career side and believes, and this could be, again, looking for confirmation, and shaking, it's always good. It was about 4 to 6 hours that she felt they were very competent.
Yep, and they can work on it by themselves independently, pursuing other things, once they got that routine down. Yeah.
But the learning modules, again, I think it goes back on the level. If you're a self-directed learner and you have a pretty good score already, then it's more likely you can adopt and adjust. If you're coming from further behind, you're going to need additional support. And underlying all of this is some leap of faith, unfortunately, is on the technology skills. Because for certain groups of our population, they need basic technology skills. This cell phone isn't the answer here. You got to know how to use a mouse to drive a menu-driven system. So there is a little bit of that technology phobia. I don't know if that's the proper technophobia. I think it might be different. Arachnophobia, something like that. But so I think there's a couple of different things to consider.